Hey guys, my name is Drew, and in this video we'll cover why I quit social media, what are some of the drawbacks, what are some of the advantages, and we'll have a discussion and we'll see if this might be something that you could benefit from. So initially what sparked this whole journey is I saw other people that were doing the same thing. They were taking breaks from social media, whether it be a day, a week, a month, or a year. And I saw that, or at least they were reporting that they had good results. And I wasn't a huge fan of like the whole social media culture, particularly on like Facebook and Twitter, where it just seemed like there's a lot of noise and people are saying a lot of words, but they're not really saying a lot of actual meaning, if that makes any sense. So I noticed like my attention span was going down. I wasn't quite as happy. I was a little bit more addicted to my phone and to my computer. I felt like I had to keep up, so to speak, and post at specific times on specific days so I could get the most likes and all that nonsense. And of course, at this time, COVID was happening, so social media was blowing up because that was basically the only sort of social interaction that we had, but I decided to give it a shot. Initially, I was going to go for 1 month without social media. And here we are, 1 full year later. I have dabbled back in a little bit since then, particularly on Reddit and Twitter. Twitter I immediately deleted after like a week. Reddit was a little bit more suited for my style, but I also don't really go on that much anymore. So first I'll cover some of the drawbacks. And these aren't to be taken lightly because there are some disadvantages, believe it or not, to not being on social media. And I think the first and for me at least the most meaningful disadvantage was that I missed out on some life events from friends and family. Now, I don't know what your life is like, but I don't keep in touch with all of my friends and family over texting and phone calls. That's something that I should probably get better at. Yet, at the same time, they're posting events on Facebook, like important life events on Facebook, and I kind of missed out on them. To give you one example, I just actually talked with a friend 2 days ago, and I found out that a month ago, he had been in a pretty serious car accident. And had I known that, obviously I would have reached out to him sooner and, would have been there for him a little bit more. But because I'm not on Facebook, I kind of missed that event. Another drawback that I experienced was that I didn't have very much social interaction during that time. This was like kind of at the peak of the pandemic, and I wasn't actually working a traditional job at that time, so I didn't really have any sort of like social setting and social function. So really how, I and many other people were getting their social fill was through social media. And because I decided to leave that avenue, I noticed that like there would be days go by and I would speak to like 2 or 3 people in general. Now, that sounds kind of dramatic, but I'm an introvert, so that didn't really bother me too much. But over time, I definitely saw that kind of becoming a little bit more of a drawback, and I noticed that I wanted to be a little bit more social and talking with other people. Now, the final drawback that I'll cover here is that my global awareness went down. When you're on, these social media sites like Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, what have you, you can kind of get a good gauge as to what everyone's doing, where everyone's at, what important events are happening during the day. And sometimes that can be relevant, especially in things like the stock market or real estate, particularly the stock market and like cryptocurrencies. Things can change rather quickly, and sometimes it pays, and sometimes it's helpful to be in the know on the current events. And I didn't really have a great system in place to get my news and to get my current events because personally, I'm not a huge fan of watching like Fox News or any sort of televised news. I don't think they do a great job at summarizing the important events that are going on in today's society. So I just didn't really have a great system to get updated on the current events. And thus, I'm sure there were things and opportunities that I missed out on. So I would say that's another drawback as well. Now, thankfully, there were some more benefits that I saw from being off of social media for the last year. For one, I didn't feel like I was addicted to my phone quite as much. Obviously, our phones are an integral part of our lives nowadays, so I still probably spend more time on my phone than I should. that quite didn't fully change, but at the same time, I wasn't necessarily just endlessly scrolling through social media. So that actually added up to a couple things. First, I had a lot more time. It's wild. If you go on your phone right now, check your screen time and see how much of that is spent on your apps, I guarantee you it's significantly more than you think it is. So cutting that part out gave me back time during the day that I can use for things like reading, working on myself, working out at the gym, cooking healthy foods, learning about side hustles, learning about building businesses, learning about other avenues like cryptocurrency or the stock market, what have you. That allowed me that time to then invest that time in other more important things. And, I think when it comes to managing your time, I think a lot of us don't necessarily realize the scarcity that we have and the limited lifespan that we have, because the truth is you can spend $10 and you can earn that $10 back. But if you spend 10 minutes watching a stupid TikTok video or, doing anything on social media that's just not really bringing you any value, that's 10 minutes that you'll never get back. So I think for me at least, managing my time better and doing things that were more beneficial to me long term were extremely useful. And I think that this last year, I really took a step forward in a lot of avenues. And a lot of that was due to me managing my time a whole lot better. Another benefit that kind of goes side and side with this is that I just had more clarity in general. I wasn't necessarily so bombarded, and I wasn't like getting these messages from influencers saying, oh, do this, or oh, do that, or oh, invest in this, or oh, invest in that. There's so much noise out there in the social media world, and it seems sometimes it can just be overwhelming with the amount of things that are people saying that you should do or that you shouldn't do. And having that time away from that just really allowed my thoughts to kind of settle, and it really allowed my thoughts to be my own. I wasn't necessarily thinking like Gary Vee or so many other influencers out there. I'm not saying that Gary Vee's bad by any means, but what I'm trying to say is that my thoughts were my own and I had more clarity. One other benefit that I noticed is that I didn't objectify things as much. And I'm guilty of this as much as the next guy, but it sometimes can be quite easy to objectify things, and to get kind of caught up in the lifestyle of, beautiful girls, money, cars, you name it, big houses, travel, lifestyle. And it can be easy to get caught up in that life and chasing things that maybe aren't necessarily meaningful to you. But I think spending time away from that setting allowed me to focus on things that are actually like present in my life as opposed to things that are just in my head. So that might be more specific to just me. It also helped me like break certain addictions and habits that I had been not really wanting to participate in anymore. So it's overall, I would say it was a great experience, and I am still going to remain off of social media for the most part. So obviously, quitting social media long term is not going to be for everyone, and I'm not saying that you should immediately go out and delete all of your social media apps. But what I am saying is that you should be mindful of how you consume social media, because as you can probably see by checking your screen time, a lot of your time out of the day, out of the week, out of the month, out of the year goes to looking at our phone and scrolling through these social media apps. And yes, it may seem harmless, 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 3 minutes here, but over time that really starts to add up, and it also kind of detracts and distracts you from what's actually going on in your life. If you like to take the next step, if you like to take the leap towards quitting social media, or at least just taking a break, personally, I recommend a period of about 2 weeks. 2 weeks is enough time to where your brain has time to fully detox and adjust to the new way you're using your phone. And it just allows you enough time to really kind of get used to not checking social media all the time. Yes, you can do it for a day. Yes, you can do it for, a week. but I really think that you need at least 2 weeks to fully gain some of the benefits that I talked about earlier. The message that I really want to drive home and what I would like for you to take away from this, if anything, is make social media work for you. Don't work for social media.